This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by Globalspeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of Globalspeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Rick, Jay, welcome to Tech Talk.
Hey, thank you, Frank.
Frank, thanks for having us.
Jay, let's kind of dive in a little bit. I think a lot of people think they understand unified communications, but I think it's a case now where the level of sophistication, the number of capabilities have grown. I would say, what's the key word we're using now? I don't know, but exponential, I guess. But obviously with all of the other aspects of apps and other things that are coming into play, let's talk a little bit about what you guys do specifically, or generally, but specifically, how does it relate to the marketplace right now?
I'm going to let Rick speak to that first.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, no worries. I think you're right. I think we see, a lot of trends in the networking and cloud convergent and in the industry taking place today, and in particular around unified messaging. And, what we find are customers, prospects, they're looking for simplicity in technology. They're looking for flexibility, scalability. So, if you think about you're managing an infrastructure, you're managing teams and remote sites, and, as a CIO, what is the best way for you to provide good value and good services for your customer base, your employee base? And unified messaging is, a platform that allows them, again, to have a scalable, a manageable, a predictable experience. And how Windstream ties into that is we're kind of a pace setter. We think to us as, Windstream and our unified messaging platform providing just what I mentioned earlier, a predictable, a scalable, and kind of a flexible service for our customers.
Well, let's talk a little bit about from the customer's perspective. One of the things that we talk about, there's two areas that I'm always fascinated by. Words don't keep up with technology anymore, semantics with, so it's very difficult sometimes to find the current meaning of a particular terminology. Certainly clouds right now, I think generally people would define it the same. But a year or 2 years ago, obviously if you asked 5 people, they wouldn't know what it was. It's sort of like STEM, for example, and what it actually means and what people think it means, kind of a thing. Let's go into a little bit about the unified messaging aspect of it, and talk a little bit about, we hear those terms as an owner of a company myself, and with the people that I deal with almost day in and day out. Everyone's got a concern about making sure they keep up. CRM is a big element, and making sure messages are returned on time, the culture of the environment is communicated properly. I mean, so many things that come into play from the quote-unquote messaging side. But let's talk a little bit about, defining that, if you would, Jay, and Rick obviously jump in as well. But what does unified messaging mean to you guys? What are we talking about specifically?
Well, this is Rick. I think, Jay, feel free to, add on here. If you think about,
certainly,
unified communication as a service. So you hear a lot of as a service in technology today, software as a service, hardware as a service. If you think about some of the bigger players in the marketplace, like an Amazon, who has had, a lot of growth in their infrastructure as a service. So just kind of continue that thought process down to, unified communication as a service. And really that is a turnkey solution. It can consist of networking, security, cloud connection, as well as even hardware, meaning a device, a handheld telephone, where that can be hosted potentially in the cloud. It could be hosted at customer's premise. And again, if you think about Windstream, we offer, multiple different solutions, custom solutions around the application. So again, I think to answer your question, if you think about what is that UCaaS, it really is a predictable purchase for a CIO where he can count on those services, whether, again, it's network, security, cloud, and even a handheld device, a PBX, a phone, as a service.
Is it, when we talk about, there's a certain level of redundancy to a degree. I mean, the word security, again, when we use terms, most of the people understand, and obviously, especially with all of the issues with hacking and some of the stuff that goes on in just overall enterprise security. But I guess, again, what I'm fascinated by is how does an entrepreneur, an executive, a business leader, you know, we jokingly say sometimes they don't even know what they don't know, you know, in terms of what new evolution, what new technology, what new app is out there. Needless to say, I put an investment in a legacy system. I want it to work, and I want it to work for as long as it can. But I'm also a realistic competitor and know that if I don't have the latest, greatest, I'm just simply not competing. So I guess really my point would be is how do I know, say, for example, who the vendor should be? You mentioned again, Rick, about custom solutions. Obviously, that's got to do with someone going in and analyzing the situation, or idealistically, the customer having identified a problem. But with so many new things and so many new capabilities, is it really driven by the vendor side, or is it driven by the customer, or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, great kind of distinction there, and I do think it's, you know, kind of a combination of both, meaning, you know, enterprises, to be competitive in today's changing environment, are always looking for that competitive edge, that one-up, that leapfrog to a new technology that will give them a competitive edge to better service their customers, their clients, their employees. So I think, you know, it really is understanding from a sales and engineering and operations perspective, at least within Windstream. It's a real cultural thing with us. We really want to understand, what are those business initiatives? What are they trying to accomplish? Where are they heading? And we hope and we think with our product suite that we can help them achieve those goals and objectives through technology. But in today's environment, there are so many different, you know, network providers, security providers, hosted providers, that you really, you know, if you're on the other end of the desk, meaning a CIO, you really need to have a good staff. You really need to have a good strategic partnership with your vendors to really know who can play well and who could help you accomplish what you want. We do find, you know, a lot of times vendors will come in and position themselves as the one necktie to solve all the needs. And, you know, in today's environment, I'm not sure that's always the best approach. So I'm not sure that answered directly what you're looking for, Frank.
The answer, I think, is that there isn't really an answer to
right.
You know, it's a case where it is a very unique solution, unique problem type situation. And I don't think, again, a lot of players, I mean, it's like everything else with technology. You're either on one side or the other. You're either a Luddite or you feel like one, or on the other side, you're an expert. Most, I think, first-generation entrepreneurs, a lot of small business people, even medium-sized manufacturers, they're just not generalists. Everything happens so fast on so many levels. Every piece of equipment, every computer, every piece of software. You kind of want something that you feel good about, that you know and understand is working for you. And I think when it comes to messaging and when it comes to unified communications, that's where I was going before, in that you hear so much hyperbole, or you hear so many people talking about so many different things, that I guess maybe what I'm posing, and again, either guys, Rick or Jay, but what I'm posing is that help me to know why I would go, how would I identify a good partner for the problem, or a good partner for the solution, if you will. And ideally, by describing that, I'm going to assume that Windstream kind of fits that bill.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, again, you know, how do you identify who is that right partner? You know, to me, it's critical. You know, critical listening. It's being able, again, to understand what the business is trying to accomplish, and then, you know, understanding that business and their assets and their investments. I mean, if you think about a Windstream, $6 billion company, right? So relevant in the space we're in, but not too big, where we're nimble. 150 offices in 48 states, so we have the breadth to touch our prospects and customers. 12,000 plus employees. Jay, I think we're over 100,000 route miles of fiber.
Right, 129,000 route miles of fiber now. So.
And so if you're, again, looking for a partner and a vendor, and those were important to you, you're really in the decision-making process. You want to make sure you have a partner aligned that can service your needs. And again, as it relates home to Windstream here in Georgia. I mean, you look at Jay, who's the president of operations, and we have a very, very strong presence with assets in our communities that we service, east to west and north to south, and that's really a competitive advantage for Windstream in the state of Georgia.
Well, mind that a little bit. Where in the state of Georgia? Where do you guys operate? Do you operate statewide, or specifically, go into a little more detail about where does the company operate in Georgia?
Yeah, we operate statewide. We're across all of Georgia. We actually operate in 18 ILEC states, but in all 48 states at some level.
Okay, and it's going to truly sound like a tourist coming to the subject, but why does that matter? I mean, if I'm, I'm thinking I'm everywhere. Every time I jokingly say it just seems like day in and day out that I was in 3 different states today, just simply on conference calls or Skyping from one reason or another. I'm guessing speed, capacity, all of those kind of things matter from a geographic location. I'm a businessman. I'm a manufacturer. What do I know? Kind of a thing. All I want to make sure is I've got the automated systems I need to keep up with my CRM or keep up my business prospecting, keep my data exchange, my transactions. A lot of activity going through those lines. But the other side of it is I'm guessing that by and large, I'm assuming that the location doesn't matter. But obviously, Jay, you're saying that it enhances the capability of delivering a satisfactory experience. Am I right about that?
I would agree with that 100%. I think it's back to kind of what Rick was talking about earlier, is just knowing your partner, know who you're partnering with, knowing the company, the size and the stretch they have to accommodate whatever it is that you're looking for, and don't put limits on yourself. We constantly strive to increase our network capacity and to be able to go out and leverage that with our partnerships as well as just our customer base to provide the service that they're looking for.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the reach is, again, tied to Georgia and where we service and where we have resources. We were working with an imaging company that has well over 60-plus imaging sites and centers, and several, obviously, up and down Georgia, but also throughout the southeast. And when they needed remote site surveys by our sales engineers, or they needed a sales call to one of those imaging sites in South Georgia, in Perry, Georgia, or up in Dahlonega, Georgia, Windstream has the field resources dedicated to those markets. So, again, as a customer, you want assurance that if you did have a need to have someone out at those remote sites, that the company has, again, the resources in place to deliver. You look at our field operations, which Jay runs. They're our secret weapon. I mean, these folks understand customers. They build relationships sometimes at a local level within communities, and it gives us that local presence, again, for whether it's a regional company, a national company, or even a Georgia-based company, to know that they have, they potentially are doing business with a company that can help them at all the remote sites up and down, whether it's Georgia or across the country.
Talk a little bit about, you touched upon it a little bit before, Rick, but maybe go into a little bit more about the products and services that you guys provide.
Yeah, I mean, again, taking, a consultative role, right? The solutions that we feel are kind of unique in this marketplace. We have a strategy and a focus around enterprise customers. We think our advanced products and capabilities are geared towards those customers. And again, we provide voice and data products. We provide cloud solutions, a new emerging technology where we've done some research. It's kind of interesting, like 63% of enterprise customers that have remote sites, and meaning more than one site, are considering SD-WAN, software-defined networking. So kind of a new buzz, and it's big in the retail space, and we have a really good product surrounding that we launched this last week and getting ready to add some enhancements to that. So that's another skill set, another capability we have. Again, we talked a little earlier today about the unified messaging platform. A lot around fixed wireless, different means of access for customers. Could be a redundant backup. It's a high security, scalable bandwidth, and also some network managed services are just some of the services and products that we offer.
Okay, so again, nothing stays the same. We jokingly say that was so 20 minutes ago. I often talk about how can you have change if it doesn't stay static enough along to make a standard to compare against that it actually changed. With that kind of fluidity, it's kind of challenging to do a long-term marketing plan, no less to be able to implement fairly heavy investments into technology or into services of one kind or another. But the other side of it is that it seems like I'm an entrepreneur again, and every time I do something, somebody will come to me an hour later and say, have you heard about this one? It's even bigger and better and less expensive. So it's like, how do you make a decision when there's so much dynamics in the marketplace? And now where I'm headed at is the future. I mean, is it a case where there's some way that, and again, you mentioned consulting, Rick, and is that consultative approach in that discussion, is that what you do, is kind of look to the future a few years and say, okay, here's what you're doing now, here's what your goals are, but here's the world that you're going to be operating in, and provide some recommendations? And I'll stop with that, but then really what I want to delve into just a little bit is what does the future hold for telecommunication customers in Georgia especially?
Yeah, no, fair, and I think you're right. I think that is even us as a business and Windstream, as well as our customer and prospects, how do you solve for what is the immediate need, right? What do we need today in order to continue to have success and to have whatever that may be for that business, right? For us, it's growth. For us, it's margin growth. For us, it's a great customer experience. Those are the core to us. So how do you ratchet through the new technology, the current technology, the platform I'm in today? What is the right migration to help A, solve right the needs today, while B, positioning me for future success? And the cost of making the wrong decision could be big, and it could be very impactful for businesses. So, that our approach is to really listen. Our approach is to really understand the requirement and match, technology solutions to help them accomplish their short-term, which we're finding, it's interesting. You're right. I mean, we used to go into clients and it was, a 7, 8, 10-year plan. Now it's here's where I am today and here's where I'd like to be in a year, maybe 2, maybe 3. The really good ones, the bigger, larger companies obviously have success plans for longer, but most of the medium and small entrepreneurials, it's like, hey, here's where I hope to be in 6 months and a year. And that's okay. We want to have technology that can adapt, and we want to have technology solutions that will allow them to migrate into whatever it may be for them without being in a box in 6 months, to your point about legacy technology.
Well, that again, I mean, I come from the other side of the discussion, and I can, in so many cases, the people don't realize, again, like I was saying before, they don't even know what, I think it was Steve Jobs that said people don't know what they want until they see it. There's so much new things out there that I don't know about. How can I make the right decision? And I think most entrepreneurs, most business people, most even top executives to a degree, maybe pressured by deadlines, pressured by a particular situation, will make a decision, no doubt about it. But I think the other side of it is that when it is confusing, when it isn't clear, when you really don't know for sure exactly what you're supposed to do, it really makes the situation that much more challenging. And I think the message that you're saying in so many ways, Rick, in terms of flexibility, the idea that I'm going to have, I'm dealing with proof of concept because I've got people that are experts. You do this, and I'm sure my problems are not uniquely to me. You've seen them and solved them in many, many cases over periods of years and over geographic territory. So, I mean, I don't know how anyone, and I don't think you would, go at it without some form of partnership or without some kind of relationship with the kind of services that you guys provide. Now, we talked a little bit about in general, but talk about the future. Go out and go out for our listeners. We just got through saying you can't really delve more than 5 or 10 years out like we used to. But let's maybe say 2 years, 5 years from now, with how fast things are changing and dealing with the cloud where you're not, in a way, tethered by what would have been traditional investments that wouldn't give you, quote unquote, the flexibility, but also gave you a certain amount of structure and confidence, if you will, that in a way you could kind of plan for the future. But now you've got everything's possible in the future. So now tell me a little bit about what you might predict, if you will, in, say, in the next 18 to 24 months, maybe a little longer, in terms of what's going to happen in the marketplace as far as telecommunications. And again, I think our listening audience, obviously they're global in many cases, but they do live in Georgia and can care about Georgia. So talk a little bit about not only the subject of the future in general, but give me a little more of an insight, say, in Georgia specifically.
Yeah, no, boy, what a loaded question, right? I think, if you think about, there's one thing for sure, right? Change continues to take place in business and will continue to take place. So how do you prepare for it? How do you embrace it? And how do you have a network and an infrastructure in place to help support it? So, what Windstream's strategy and positioning, while there's a lot of things that we work on every day and we do really, really well, we want the network to be an enabler to help customers accomplish their business objectives. The one thing, or said a different way, the one thing we don't want our customers to come to us and say, the network is holding me back from us doing X, Y, and Z. We want the network to be an enabler, whatever that is, meaning applications running on the network, security running on the network, scalable, flexible security being embedded into the infrastructure in the network. So I think for us in the future, you'll see Windstream continue to have a strong presence in Georgia. We'll continue to invest larger and bigger capital and network and fiber and fixed wireless into Georgia, up and down the state of Georgia, as well as in our people and our products and our services, and try to stay ahead of this changing environment that we're in. I hope that helped, Frank.
Yeah, well, I hope you can appreciate the fact that one of the things that we try to do is not just educate, but get people to understand that a lot of times what they feel and the concerns that they have in making a decision, it's not isolated. It's a lot of people have that same concern. And of course, on the other side, like anything, you have a tendency that if you know and understand it, and you've used the technology for a long period of time, that everybody should know it and understand it. And one of the things I'm always fascinated by is the level of knowledge and understanding as it relates to technological turnover. So I'm sure that there are a lot of entrepreneurs, if anything, maybe not a specific great thought, Rick, although I think there were several really good insights in some of the points that you're making. The biggest issue is that there are a lot of unknowns. It is a consultative situation. And you're not going to give me a rate card that I check off a box and just simply pick the equipment and try to figure out what to do with it after it gets shipped in. It's a case where, in effect, you become strategic partners that not only provide the ability to get to the solution, give you some insights based on your experience and past successes to be able to give you a sense of direction. And bottom line, last part, trust. I think so much matters when you get to the point where you're dealing with so many different things. Really, relationships do matter, and trust is the key to that relationship. And I know when it comes to Windstream, I don't know too many people that know of you guys and know of the reputation that you have. That there's two words probably come to mind more than anything, and that's incredible ability. That's two words alone, but ability, but also trust. These are good people to do business with. So, hey, with what's going on and the busy schedules that you guys have got, the number of territory as large as you've become, I'm truly impressed over the kind of numbers that you were citing there, Rick, 'cause I had no idea that you guys had grown to that extent. But as far as today in the overall subject, we've got the discussion started, the conversation going. But Rick, Jay, hey, great job you guys are doing over at Windstream, and thanks for taking a few minutes out of what I know is a really exciting but also busy schedule. Great 2017, but thank you so much for being on Tech Talk today.
Hey, thank you. Listen, I think you guys are doing a really good thing bringing this podcast out to the community so folks can learn and listen and explore. So appreciate the work you guys are doing.
Great. Thanks, Frank.